She didn't have coffee on. Think I like it never happened to me. We were nothing. I don't even need your love. You treat me like a stranger and I feel so loved. No, you didn't have to stoop so low. Have your friends collect your records and then change your number. I guess that I don't need that though. Now you're just somebody that I used to know. Now you're just somebody that I used to know. Now you're just somebody that I used to know.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? It is Dollar Cost Crypto here from Red One Studios. I'm here with the Thor, the dominant masculine presence.
Oh man, it's good to be here with you, Miguel. It's been a little while since we got together last time.
Yeah, dude, it's been a while.
Was it February?
It must have been February, or it must have been that event we did with MLD back in the day.
Oh yeah, in
San Diego.
Oh, we did that. That was way cool.
That was really cool.
That's when you got your oath ring.
Yeah, we got that and stuff. I still have it. I have it in my. I had it somewhere.
Oath ring, brother.
I've got the Rolex on.
No, it's all good. Well, you know what the Rolex is Rolex. That was real good. Yeah. So how you been out here? Everything's moving good.
Yeah, everything's moving real good. I mean, just busy as hell. We just finished the crypto mindset event.
How'd that go?
It went really well. Like, damn, we had a lot of people show up. It was really fun. I'm still recovering. I'm actually a tad bit like a little under the weather still from it.
Yeah, GL said it went really well. I wish I could have came. Sorry,
No, it's okay.
I had to travel out here, but everything's going to get busy, and then it's going to get busy again in about a month. We're doing that summer smash for Rule Zero,
right?
Where
who you got your money on?
On RP Thor. What the hell? I'm living the dream, Wow, no, Son of Thor is pretty good, but Paul's a sneaky. He's sneaky. That Paul is so sneaky. There's going to be a wrestling match in August, or it's going to be in October now. Yeah, so that'll be a live event that's broadcast at a later date. So that should be really fun. And then I should be traveling to Miami for the CME. I'm hoping to go out there and visit them and say hi to Myron. None of that's firmed up yet, but we'll get that firmed up. And then I'd like to make a trip back here. That's pretty nice out here in Vegas. You guys are really putting together a nice little studio. Red One is looking pretty darn good, impressive.
Thank you, man. It's not too shabby, man.
The team's coming together.
Definitely, man. We got Kyle working the cameras, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Kyle,
he's learning the trial through fire. Yeah, we got sure mics now. Wow, what is this? What's going on? But
yeah, I'm on number 2, and it was low on some of the other broadcasts. Yeah, I was telling Glenn. So, I mean, I could really choke up on it, but no, it's all right. How we doing? Test.
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen, and we're live.
We are live. I mean, we're still doing the remodeling here. You guys are doing all the good stuff, but the production value is actually quite high. I could see the potential. Very good, you know.
Thank you, man.
So yeah, your event went really well. I heard that there was quite a turnout.
Yep.
I mean, where else do you do an event but Las Vegas? Really? I mean, come on.
Right.
Are we going to get the Bitcoin convention here eventually?
Eventually. Stuff. I mean, we were a couple months ago at the Bitcoin Miami convention.
Florida.
Stuff.
Yeah.
It's so funny. These Bitcoin guys, all they talk about is other cryptos. They don't even talk about Bitcoin.
Is it like red pill guys talking about black pill guys?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
But it's kind of funny. We went out there and we were kind of like the we thought we were going to be like, because we're not just Bitcoin, we're other coins, and it ended up being this whole event where we're like, they ended up, everyone that talked to us, because Pulse Chain was coming out and stuff, the Richard Hart, Richard Hart thing.
Chain.
Yeah, he knows about it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm a Hexican too, so
hey,
I got some. Now I'm not as far into it, but I the old man has a wallet and it was able to do a couple of things. So it's been an interesting learning experience. But I told you once before, my first crypto experience was back in 2014.
Right.
I bought a Bitcoin. Now I traded in and out of it many times, but I had a good run for a while there for sure. And as of today, it's still very good. And some of it's based on the information I got from you guys, learning from you guys coming into the space. I learned a lot because I really didn't pay attention to it.
Right.
You just do a savings account sort of thing when you're a guy like me, because that's what we've been taught our whole lives. And really got to take a different mindset when you're talking about crypto. And heck, dollar cost, dollar cost averaging, man.
Yeah, man.
So I learned a lot about that, and that just goes to show you, you can always teach an old dog new tricks.
Right. Now, is that a part of a masculine frame? A masculine presence?
Well, yeah, of course. And that's what we're here to talk about, right? Is I just had a new book coming out, and you got a chance to take a look at it, and this has been a project for a while. You and I have been in the space for a while, but we had a mutual friend where we were doing, some video Zooms with, and over the course of time, I met you out at the conference on masculine excellence. But prior to that, I had taken some of the video lectures where we were working with men in this space. And primarily I was talking about how to become a more durable man in today's environment, kind of like conventional masculinity, really, and success in long-term relationships. And one thing I noticed is there was an extreme need through doing the consultations for guys to kind of develop some emotional regulation or durability and to reacquire their masculinity. It's been under assault for some 50 to 70 years now. So it's kind of been a labor of love putting together and doing the research to put a book out there that's just not another book complaining about masculinity being toxic, but one that actually lists the behaviors and traits of masculine men in a conventional way. When I say conventional, not only is it traditional in some cases, but it crosses all cultures. And why is this so important? Well, it's so important as human beings, the polarity between men and women. It's masculine and feminine. We can all recognize that. Yeah. And so as men, we have to project that masculinity out into the world in order to get things done. It's often been said that the difference between men and women is their primary agency here on the planet. Women have sexual agency. It's their primary way. They have the children, they create human beings. Well, what is a man's primary agency in the world? It's his problem-solving ability. That's probably the number one skill that he needs when you get past survival and procreation, is the ability to solve problems. And how do you do that? You have to acquire that skill. You're not born with it. Whereas if you're a woman, you're born with the ability to have children if you're normal. Right?
Is that like a test of IQ or like a test of intelligence and stuff in order to be able to get to the ability where you can problem solve?
Well, at any level of intelligence, you have to solve certain problems anyway, right? But yeah, it is, as you learn to, in fact, that problem solving skill is probably one of the most important of the 7 skills that I identify in the book, the skill set of a dominant masculine presence. And when I say a dominant masculine presence, I'm talking about the problems that masculinity's had in the last 70 years being toxic, and it's been suppressed by our school system. I even go so far as talk about why all the way back to B.F. Skinner using operant conditioning on young boys so that they're more compliant in the workforce. Our whole school system, if you didn't know, was designed to keep men somewhat settled down so that they were good, compliant factory workers. And I throw some quotes in there from like Norman Rockefeller. I'm sure you're familiar with the name, and some of the others, when the school systems were being put together, and they talked about they didn't want a nation of thinkers. They wanted a nation of workers. And they funded the initial board on education that was later voted into the national, which became the Department of Education. It was a private organization that was voted into a public, kind of like the Federal Reserve. You think it's private, but you think it's federal.
Right.
In this case, they took a private organization that actually did take it federal. But the whole idea was to have a standardized education system that would create workers in the Industrial Revolution. The side effect is you couldn't have the same ambitions and aggressiveness. It was kind of tamped down. And so I go into some of that in detail, kind of as the problem and the crisis of masculinity right now as it stands. And then I start to kind of outline why it's important to acquire a dominant masculine presence. When I say dominant, it's not domineering. Domineering is actually the opposite. Domineering essentially is grandstanding, Miguel. And we all know people like that. You grandstand, I beat my chest. And really, that's just kind of, you're trying to project onto the world by telling everybody how awesome you are.
Right.
And that doesn't really work. It's that kind of guy that when he steps in the room, he doesn't have to say a word. But because of his presence, his body language, his mannerisms, you know that the big animal just walked in the room.
Right.
And you know people like that, being in your industry, you know when the big animals arrive.
Oh, we definitely do.
And so that's a part of that. And where people get confused is they like a yes or no answer. Am I alpha or am I beta? And being in this space, we all know alpha, beta, and of course the sigma male.
Right.
We all know about that, right? And that's very attractive, and it helps us understand human behavior somewhat. But the problem with it is it's very incomplete, because you can think a guy is an alpha or you can think a guy is beta. But if you look at success factors of a man in his overall life, it's something more than just how it's been outlined in the socio-sexual hierarchy of alpha, beta. And that's where
Deltas.
I bring in the 7 skills of a dominant masculine presence. There's leadership skills that go with that. Not the servant leader, but the transformational leader style.
So you were saying there's 7 skills.
There's
7 skills, and basically, is it the sort of thing where, like, if you're at the top of one, is it sort of just like if you're at the top of like looks, it gives you all these benefits, or is it like you have to have multiple ones at a decent level to get things done?
So that's a really good question. And no, it doesn't have to do with looks per se. Looks can get you in the door if you're looking for a relationship or you're looking to impress somebody in a business meeting, but all it really does is give a first impression. You know, sometimes, you ever heard the term first impressions can be wrong? They're important, no doubt about it. Right. They always buy you extra time, or they set the stage for you to perform.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. But if you move past that and you want any sort of sustainability with your social group or with relationships, what you have to have a certain skill set. And I'll tell you exactly what they are. It's physicality, it's psychology, it's presence, problem solving, it's prosperity, and it's power as an influence, being able to socially influence people. And then it's passion on top of that. And so inside of those skills, they are container words, but they're all categorized on purpose because you can use those skills. Within those, there's techniques to develop them. But imagine this. In order to become a dominantly masculine present man, imagine if I leveled up in physicality.
Right.
My body's good, my muscles are good, I'm all of that. And then on top of that, I had a good psychology about me. I understood relationships and business relationships with men and marketing. And I understood how to use that psychology of emotions coupled with rationality. And then on top of that, I was above average in, how about presence? I could project this out onto the world. What would I have? I would have a Brandon Carter, right? So he is at least well above average in 3 of those. So he is a dominant masculine presence. Now, I'm not referring to how he works in the sexual marketplace.
Right.
And, you know, he may have some lack of skills with women. I don't know. But you can also look at someone like a Jeff Bezos. Now, someone like him, you can look at his skill set, and he is definitely going to be above average in some of these skills And he definitely is a dominant masculine presence in his life. Say what you will about his situation with his divorce and his girlfriend, but he definitely has problem solving skill.
Definitely.
Huge. He has power, ability to influence. I would even go so far as to say he has passion. And he definitely has psychology in order to operate like that,
Right.
and bring it to that level. And look at the height he's brought himself to. And do you think he really cares whether people say, oh, yeah, you got a divorce and got taken for half. And look, you went with this older gal. You know what he cares about that? Nothing. He's living the dream that he wants to. So I would have to admire him as a dominant masculine presence. And that goes way beyond alpha and beta. A lot of guys like to say Jeff Bezos is a beta. You know, we have friends that do, and that's okay. It's useful in certain conversations to use alpha and beta. But I go a little bit beyond that so that the reader can start to acquire these skills.
Now, do you think they say that about Jeff Bezos because if a normal man were in that same position, he's essentially done some pretty bad stuff for his life? Like, obviously, Bezos has so much money. If he gets divorced, it doesn't really it matters, but not really. And where if, like, as an example, a normal guy got divorced and everything, he loses half his money. It's a much darker, harder road because he's accomplished extremely much less, right? And
he can't buy himself out,
right?
But he can certainly work his way out by having emotional regulation and self-determination by acquiring more of these skills. The more problem-solving skills you acquire, let's use an example. You're offering problem-solving skills when it comes to learning how to buy cryptocurrencies.
Yep.
And that in and of itself doesn't earn you money. In fact, there's risk in doing that. Right. But when you couple that with passion, you learn more, you gain experience, and then you learn the psychology of the market. Right. And so when you put those three things together and you become above average, you get somebody like yourself that actually starts to tip that in your favor to such a degree that you're making the money to solve the problems now.
Right.
So I try to frame those skills in that arena so it's accessible to every man. You don't have to have. Well, look who's there. I have to say hi to my good friend Coco. Hope you're feeling better. that's Mrs. GL right there. So in the studio, we can see behind the scenes. So it's just caught my eye. So I had to say hi. But yeah, I try to frame it so that every man can identify with it, because it's another part of the book that I talk about is identity and archetype. Every man has to really look at his identity, particularly if we're going to go into something like, you know, in this space, we talk about money, muscles, game, and frame.
Yep.
We had a friend that came up with that, and it really fit the time, and it gave a foundation for men to self-improve. But I want to move way beyond that. That's very important, but I wanted men to also be able to work on their identity, because inside of your identity is a lot. There's personality, there's your social acuity, and so I talk to men that may not have thought this through with their identity and archetype. I look a little bit at Jungian archetypes. I look a little bit about heroes and why you would want to look across that, and then couple it with mentors you had in your life,
right?
And actually start to emulate them in your thoughts and your actions. Because really, once you start to actualize it with actions really start to take place. You start to bend reality to your will. Right. At that point, you're taking these actions as if you had these archetypes. They were part of your personality, and then that becomes your identity. It's who you actually are. It's kind of been said in our spaces, you fake it till you make it.
Right.
So I go into detail about that.
So does it mean you have to choose sort of like these heroes or archetypes in order to cut? Now, obviously not just one, but you have to like this one for this one for that, or is it just, you know, you try to emulate this person to have it change you, to improve you, and then you go to another one, or what do you do?
No, that's a really good question. And there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Right.
If that was something that you were very analytical and you needed to get your mindset in the right place, you certainly could do that. And I discussed that in the book. But what it's really all about is creating some thought experiments in your mind on who the ideal you is, so that you don't have to use these examples in the future. And where it becomes important is in the back of the book, I start to talk about emotional durability and how to actually conquer fear, sadness, and grief in your life. So it's important that you have a personality that kind of stands on its own. You don't have to rely on these other identity types. You want to develop it. We used to call it character. So you could also say you're developing your alter ego, your deepening your character and you're broadening your character by using these exercises in the book. Is it the only way to do it? No, it is not the only way to do it. But hopefully it'll stimulate your mind so you can actually put an action plan together so that you can do this. And by doing this, I also give you a comprehensive list of masculine traits.
Right.
And if you look in the back of the book, there's quite a large list of those traits in the quick references. And I also added some bonuses in there where I did a lot of research on it, on feminine traits as well. You won't see too many of them listed. Just, you can ask anybody, well, what's 4 feminine traits? It's really hard to do, but if you think about it, it's not. But yeah, I go through and actually list conventional masculinity in terms of behaviors and traits. And then another part of it is I break it down into body language. What is masculine body language? Obviously, we all know that aggressiveness can be.
Yes.
But so is ambition. So controlled ambition is actually quite attractive. He knows what he wants.
Right.
We've heard that before. I want a man that knows what he wants and where he's going. He has confidence. You ever hear the terms when you're dealing with men and women and a woman is describing a man that she finds very attractive? She'll say, he has the vibe.
Right.
That is his presence.
Has it.
Absolutely. And he could be a bad boy. I mean, think of it this way. Why are women attracted to the bad boys? They can be criminals. But if you look at that skill set, they can be leveled up in some of those. They may not have prosperity, but they can have psychology, physicality, and in a way, they have problem-solving skills. Yeah, maybe they got caught for it, but they got those above average.
Do they think because not that like I can change him, right? or the guy version of it, like I can save her.
well, that's a big deal. That's for.
Look, can we talk about the girl side first? Because you said there's 4 female traits, right? So why do obviously as a guy I kind of know why, like, oh, I can save her, right? But why the hell do guys end up? I mean, are guys, because it seems like a kind of a foolish thing, right? So obviously girls are attracted to the bad boy characteristic, right? But then you have also guys falling for this kind of a Captain Save-A-Ho sort of a thing and stuff. Like, are they both just like terrible strategies in terms of like versus like they just finding someone with a good character, but that may not be as sexy as like, because the bad boy may be showing more of the good characteristics with one really bad one with a certain character.
There's a lot of mystery with the bad boy because you don't know. It's like riding a roller coaster, and that's exciting. It gives you the tingles, and that there's something to that. I mean, there is a evolutionary reason that's very attractive because it also, not to delve too much into evolutionary psychology, but there's something about being able to protect, and fight off. You have to have a competent man, and part of having a dominant masculine presence is being able to dominate other men in the arena of your choosing or in a contextual fashion. You don't have to even be completely physical. So let's say you were disabled, but if you were a contextual master over your mind and your ability to do business, that's good enough. And that's why sometimes you can see a guy that's not very physically attractive, and he's with what looks like a 10 to you. He's surrounded by beautiful women, and it puzzles guys sometimes because they put so much emphasis on it. But, for a woman, of course, attractiveness, physicality is very important, but it moves beyond that pretty quickly once she starts looking for a relationship.
Right.
If it's that quick term, quick sex, then it's something else.
Beta bucks, alpha fucks.
But then it changes from that pretty darn quickly, But when it comes to the female characteristics that men, I know I just listed in the very back, I really focus on masculine behaviors and traits. I think it's really important that we have those. But obviously fit, feminine, friendly, agreeable, deference to her man. So sexual strength for others, but her man, sexual release for a man, things like that. You won't find, you'll find that it's interesting to go through that list and see what I've been able to gather. There's some research behind it. I did some questionnaires, so it's interesting what people say.
Nice.
I don't have them all memorized because there's like 35 of them on there.
There's a lot of them, yeah.
But it's pretty interesting. So, but that's really not the bulk of the book. The book is about, why we're where we're at in the masculinity crisis. We can all look around and see it. We got an incel problem. We got men that last I looked in the GSS survey, which I show in the book, 30% sexless before age 30.
Wow. Wait,
Now-
wait. Say that again. So 30% of males are sexless?
Sexless or virgins within a year that age 30 and below for men. They have no sex in the last year, or they're virgins.
They're virgins, or they've been trying and just nothing's been happening
for at least a year. They're either virgins for their whole life, or they have not had sex within a year.
That's worse than the unemployment rate.
Now, for what it was just 10 years prior was 11 and 12%.
Wait. You're talking about a tripling in 10 years?
Yeah.
A tripling.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I also talk about in there, well, why? And there's some speculation that I put in there. We know that testosterone for men has fallen in the last 50 years by 45%.
And is that in the last 10 or 20?
No, it's like the last 50 years.
Last 50
total.
years.
Well,
So-
since 1980.
Okay, since they've been really tracking it.
So since they've been tracking it. And that's tens of thousands of men. And there's even a more scary side to this, because it's a multivariate problem, and it might couple into masculinity and how men operate and behave in societies and by themselves. But you realize that sperm counts have fallen 50% in like 45 years as well.
That makes sense.
It's correlated right along, and it's linear. It's trackable year to year to year across Western Europe and America. There's a book on it called The Countdown. And I believe it's by Dr. Shauna Thompson. I could be wrong on the name, but check me on that. But I quote that in there, and I show her studies, and it's pretty shocking, because if you straight line that just until 2040,
all right,
it's unrecoverable. There's no sperm left.
What?
It's if you straight line it, you hit zero at 2040. So it's got to level out somewhere, is what I'm saying.
It's got to bottom out.
But it is pretty interesting as the topic of the book for this academic woman who actually leans left to look at this. And then I pose the question, if that's the case, and that coupled with, the advent of toxic masculinity,
right,
the social pressures with changing our language to say vulnerability is strength, which we know it's not.
Right.
All of these pressures hitting young men, and the very people that have put these pressures on them now say, man up to our young boys. Well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
Man up. Well, they've been suppressed long enough, and we're even getting on the verge, at least socially, of making masculinity the red letter, being the red letter. The American Psychological Association now lists masculine behaviors as actually toxic. And I list those in the book. There's quite a few. It's listed on their website, and it's pretty amazing to see what they list. It's showing aggression of any type is listed as toxic.
Of course.
Sometimes you have to. You have to be that way. They also listed as not being a feminine ally as a masculine. Yeah, exactly.
That's a toxic trait.
It's pretty strange to read it. It's definitely something you'll be surprised at looking at. But that is actually the position of all of the psychologists that belong and practice psychology out of the APA, believe now, for masculinity. So there is a crisis of masculinity, and you can actually see, that with our younger men right now. They're quite effeminate.
Yeah.
You could look at pictures. Effeminate, vastly overweight, uninterested in ambition. They're staying at home longer.
Yep.
They really are. I mean, they're staying at home longer. And then I talk a little bit about the crisis of, single motherhood is not a good outcome for a lot of these guys. And you need to have a man that understands masculinity to really transfer it to the boys. And that's what I'm hoping is the book can help stimulate that.
No, I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, we know society's been kind of pretty fucked for quite a while and stuff. But I think this is one of the reasons why, like, the red pill and a lot of stuff's kind of going around. I mean, even the cryptocurrencies in terms of fighting against inflation. I mean, that's really what it's here for. I think one of the reasons why a lot of families haven't been started, and there's a lot of economic reasons as well. I mean, our just the other day, right? I mean, just like I remember back in the day, you'd go to the store, like a bag of chips would be like $1. That same bag of chips today is $2.50. That used to be the big bag. And you have inflation, the silent killer. So it's not just it's both testosterone, it's being overworked. I mean, your financial power being eroded, and it's a ton of stuff that's going down. I mean, shit, I bought some meat the other day and stuff at the supermarket. That was like $20 maybe a couple of years ago. Today it's $60-$70 for the same amount.
It is, isn't it?
It's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's a lot of little things.
Yeah.
And then the economic side, and this is what me and Charlie try to teach is like, to defend yourself against that. I mean, like our assets in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's like they've doubled this year.
Yeah.
Where else have you been able to get a double? Anywhere?
Nope.
Nowhere. I mean, try to double your income. It's very difficult, right? But this is just like why, like during these times when these assets move up, you can make a lot of money. But this is also why when you learn the red pill, you can level up and you get these massive amount of benefits that can really change your life. Like, I mean, just off, even if just for sexual competition, you being awakened to the game already puts you on such a different level compared to the average layman and stuff, because most people don't have older brothers or siblings that are telling them any of this stuff at all. And they're by themselves, like you're saying. Like they're just, I mean, like, what was it? Your grandparents had 8 kids, your parents had 3, and you're going to end it all with 0.
Exactly. I think it's important to get this information out. One thing is I have 3 sons and a daughter, and I have 12 grandchildren. And part of doing the book, it wasn't to sell books, really, to be honest with you.
Right.
I did it for me because I wanted to cast something that was concrete that I had been teaching my sons for years, and do a little bit of research behind it so that it could be cast in the future as somewhat of a pseudo legacy for others to follow. And do
you think, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit about like the having son, like what made you because like obviously the red pill just is barely been, like, it's been around forever, but it's like been formulated barely in the last maybe like, let's just say 10 years.
Okay. As
an example, why did you choose to have children and stuff? Because like this is one of the things that even I get a pushback on my channel when I said, have kids if you want, and people are like, the juice is not worth the squeeze. I'm not saying getting married, but like, if you don't have kids, your bloodline ends there. That's true. That's it.
Well, I came from a family that always encouraged the men to acquire a wife and to have children. So that was kind of a given, right? Go out there, conquer the world. We'll support you as much as you can, but as a man, you got to do that. So you asked me, why did I have kids? Do you want the hard, cold truth?
Yes.
Good. Well, I met this really cute little Mexican gal. All right. And she was really good. And she was young, man, hot-blooded. When they say them Latinos are 10 degrees hotter, they burn 10 degrees hotter down there, it's true. And so, but they're also 10 degrees meaner when they get mad. Okay. They get that knife out. Give you that Mexican boxing glove. So I was with her for a while, and things were good, and then they weren't good. And so we broke up. And you know how it is when you're young, and the draw that brings you back in, and let's have a little weekend together. Maybe we can work this out. I'm on the pill. It's no problem. It didn't really work out.
On the pill.
2 months later, guess what the call is? Yeah. I'm pregnant. Why? How? Oh, because Mexican gals can get pregnant by the vapors. Right? They can get pregnant by them sperm vapors. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I've heard. I've gotten tested, man. They say I can get a doorknob pregnant.
So it wasn't even really a question, because at that point, I knew I was going to have kids, and it's just like, oh, well, you know what? We're going to get married, and I'm going to have kids. Let's go. It wasn't the crash or the emotional crash. It was a little earlier than I wanted, and since we were doing the breakup, and then it was going to fix everything.
Right.
It didn't. I had another son, thank goodness, and I love my sons. But it wasn't shortly after the one son turned 2 that she had so much FOMO, fear of missing out, with the single girlfriend she had. She left. I mean, it couldn't have worked out better for me in a lot of ways, because I didn't get that nasty divorce situation.
Right.
And eventually we ended up actually becoming friends again.
That's good.
I mean, her and my current wife get along great. So it was okay. But it's probably not the reasons you think that I had those children, And
well, that's being honest, because you have a lot of guys that would
I made the best of it. It was great, and I had them with me the whole time, And so talking about them, I want to get back to some of this. Wasn't really a part of it, but I wanted to share with you. Let me get here real quick, and I want to share with you. I just had it open. Of course, did I close it? Of course I did. But I want to get back with some of the traits of the masculinity I wanted to share with you. I can't really get to it.
Shout out to Mexican American. My youngest came from vapors too.
Did they really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to read to you guys just a little bit of the list of masculine traits. And you tell me if you wouldn't want to cast this in the future.
Sure.
Or even if you're a reader of the book, is these the behaviors and traits you would want as conventional masculinity? How about honor, strength, self-discipline, mastery, ownership, conquest, emotional regulation, durability, foresight, perspicacity, leadership of the inspirational type, provisioning, security, respect, ambition, pride, competitiveness, aggression, capability for violence. You're going to need it someday, possibly. Yep. You better be prepared. Adventuresome, risk-taking, stoicism, mystery, discernment, reflection, passion, compassion, accountability, self-validation, promptness, loyalty, congruence, stewardship, and awareness. That's just some of them. That's just scratch the surface. Right. There's reasons why I list those, because when you hear them and you have them written down, you can think back to what impressed you about the mentors you had. You start to formulate. That's the reason you're going to hone your identity. You know, one of the laws of power is constantly reinvent your identity. That's one of the laws of power. And so it is important that you kind of sharpen that all the time. And just as a fun one, I did some surveys and talked to a lot of people identifying feminine traits. You want to hear the feminine traits that are in the book?
Sure.
Because these are some of the ones you might want to find in a woman. And you need to be aware of what they are. Ask a man right now to name you feminine traits, as many as you can. Tits, ass. No.
Dishwasher.
There's a lot more than that. yeah, I got some pictures of me lifting the dishwasher, by the way. But that's funny. But fit, friendly, a woman that feels, can be sympathetic, polite and pleasant, peaceful, accommodating, agreeable, conscientious, nurturing, cooperative, deference, for her elders and for her man. Okay. Etiquette and decorum, trustworthiness, respectful, prompt and timeliness, compassionate, passionate, responsible, intuitive, understanding. Some of these overlap, but these are feminine in nature. Nesting, eagerness, enthusiasm, the childlike inquisitiveness. That's attractive to men and women, really. You know, if you think about it for a minute. And innocence, self-care, modesty, elegance, restrained sexuality. And that kind of fits into the whole body count thing. When you're looking for that long-term mate, right? But yet for the man on his side, he wants it restrained, but not for him.
Not for him.
Okay, that's back on the other side, right? And so you want one that can also be congruent, have social awareness, active listening skills, and that just scratches the surface. There's way more than that. There's openness, good nature. You want someone that's actually pleasant to be around.
Right.
But those are just some of the traits and behaviors that I use in some of the thought experiments as you go through. How am I going to acquire this presence so that when I interact with people, they know I'm a dominant masculine presence and I'm fun to be around. I'm easily tagged as a leader. You know, people like that. You're probably like that. You get in your social group and you become the natural leader, or you've known men like that. And they're pleasant to be around and you're willing to do that. They have a presence about them that not only offers comfort, but security, not only to women, but to the men around them. And they want to, you know, have mentorship from you. Yeah. So I talk about that. And let's get into the nuts and bolts. So one of the things I do is I start with a principle called outside in. So how do I acquire this dominant masculine presence, Miguel? Well, I start when I identify this identity archetype. I can use heroes, actors. I use several examples in the book. I actually start to emulate that body language. Shoulders back, head up high. I mean, you're going to know this coming from the Latin community, but if you look around and you pay attention right now, some of the body language that men will give off that don't have that presence, when they nod at somebody, they nod down. Yeah. How do the Vatos do it when they see each other? Oh, that's some dude, macho.
I feel so triggered right now. I'm so triggered.
The Latins, man, they got a lock on macho. Masculine, right?
¿Qué pasa, compa?
Yes, I know. But it's kind of cool because you can take a lesson from that. It can be respectful, but it can also be challenging, right? Right. It can be both. But it's how it's done. And so I use that as an example. And then, you know, also walking with purpose, you know. There's a strut, you can peacock. There's different kinds of body language that can express masculinity. You can be open body language. You can take up space without being obnoxious and challenging.
Right.
And so I use examples in there, just some brief ones, open body language sitting here, or I can, how do you feel about me just sitting here like this? It's a decent stance,
Yes,
but
decent.
it fits me, right? So what if I'm sitting here and I do, now how is it,
You're closed up. Yeah.
So there is some things you can do with body language, and also how you use your eye. I mean, I got my cataract glasses on, but how you use your eyes
Right.
when you're talking with somebody, and then how you can also use them to affix your gaze to other people, pace your voice.
Right.
I also go into some techniques on how to use your voice. And I go into one called using the resonance mass technique, where you feel a vibration across your nasal cavity in order to develop a more masculine and kind of sometimes a low gravelly voice, and why it's important to use language when you're communicating to express points. And then I point out some of the bad habits that people have, particularly men, when they're talking to women and they want to express a point. Some men will want to show interest, so they're talking to a woman and they do this with the whites of their eyes. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, Coco. And I'm showing her the whites up here. You realize that not only is challenging, but it's creepy.
Yeah.
And I've counseled guys, well, how do I show her that I'm interested in her stuff? Well, not by doing that. You have to have more of that, subtle.
By beating up Glenn.
And
that's
exactly. But you think about it for a minute, and we've seen that with some of the less socially aware,
right,
with their eyes, or they'll flitter their eyes, trying not to look. I'm looking at your tits. No, I'm not. I'm not looking at your tits. I'm looking at you.
Right. You look sporadic.
Yeah, exactly. There's no congruence with it. So that comes off as pretty weak too. So we actually go through some of those examples, so you can become aware of it. And then I teach them in there, use the mirror. Right. And I point to some video examples too.
Where can people get the book right now? You have it on Amazon? You have it on your website?
It is available on the website. I think the link is dead right now.
Okay.
I'm not very good at the web, at doing the web work, but I'll make sure and fix it as soon as I get back to the hotel. But it's available on Amazon. Okay. It's been out for just under 4 weeks right now.
Woo, there we go.
And it's you could buy the book. Definitely available on the store at a dominant masculine presence. In fact, the easiest way to find it is just go to Amazon and type in RP Thor.
There we go.
Which that's my name. So you're gonna find it. Read the synopsis. Actually, quite a few guys in our space stepped up and they wrote some really nice reviews, because I kind of did a draft audio of this and sent it around before to get some input from some of the guys. So I did my research on this. It's not as in-depth as a scientific tome, but it's more of a thought-provoking motivational tome. So it is available in paperback. It's available in hardback, and you could get an Audible book dropped at any moment. But I mean, if you know anything about how these are done, they go through a process.
Right.
And that process takes up to a month or more to get through. So I actually read the book. So I did all the narration.
So you did it yourself when you're in the voice.
Yes,
that's
my own voice.
That's cool.
That's for all my YouTube lady members out there. I did it in my own voice. So yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, you can find it on Amazon, and it's starting to take some traction. This is actually some of the first promotion I've done since it came out, because I've been busy.
So it's been not bad, man. I've heard a lot of great things about it and stuff. Obviously, it's good to have you in here, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
So I know you've been in the red pill space for quite a while and stuff like that. So I mean, how long did it take you to kind of formulate these thoughts and stuff? Because let me tell you, this book is like, so obviously we've got the classic, we got the classics with Rolla Tomasi and stuff with the rational male and going through the sexual dynamics between men and women. This is taking like a red pill path, but then taking it a little bit further, and sort of, I would say, like, it's not like body mastery, but like just taking certain, like, not just the presence, but taking this, like, one thing that we were saying on Rolla Tomasi stream earlier today on the almost at the dragon ship, but
that's okay.
That's a good show. It's a good show.
Check me out on the dragon ship too.
But what we were saying is like, the way things are, people are doing so much drama that they're not trying to advance the space anymore.
Right.
And the whole space was created to help men out. And I think we're getting away from that right now, and it's heading towards this whole thing of like, we're just end up creating, bubblegum. I mean, we're creating like gladiatorial games, really.
We really are, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Rollo's work is a seminal work, and some of the other guys put it out there. They connected the dots. They gave us a tool chest. Now, what we do with those tools is up to us. So I don't necessarily point out those tools, although I give you tools and techniques, particularly when it comes to emotional regulation. We definitely go into some serious techniques. They're not the only ones to regulate emotions, but I go into also some research why you'll live longer if you do these things. It's up to you. But what I'm trying to put out there is, how do I actualize this red pill knowledge in my life to better myself and those around me? How do I project this dominant masculine presence in order to bend reality to benefit myself and those around me? You know, how do I do that? How do I take this tool set and actually use these tools? I don't call them out by the tools, but if you've already looked at this space, I think it'll be really obvious to you where those fit in.
Right.
I'm trying to use examples in particular that don't actually call out those tools, but they give an example of how you might be honorable, how you might keep your word, or why you might enter a room a certain way, or why you might interact with a group of people as a transformational leader instead of a servant leader,
Right.
which isn't leadership at all.
What is the difference between those two?
Well, the servant leader is based on some misinterpretations of biblical works, whereas as your leader, you come first as the people or the persons. I serve you,
Right.
but I'm still leading you. That is what's broadcast out there today, to be leader in any group. They do this even in corporate America. You know, you have to serve the employees that you're serving. Well, I call bullshit on that, and I actually use examples in history of why what we need is actually inspirational leadership, or even better is transformational leadership, where you're a leader in such a way that, look, I don't lead by a group consensus, which is really typical of servant leadership. How do you feel about this decision? How do you feel about this decision? How do you feel about this decision? Now, while an inspirational or a transformation leader might consider everybody's opinion,
Right.
he'll still make the hard decision that's best for him and the group, because he is the leader. You know, he is going to make the decision. There are leaders in history that had to make decisions that cost people thousands of lives, thousands, many of them their lives. I use an example of Teddy Roosevelt in the Panama Canal. He knew he was willingly sending men to their deaths. There was nothing you could do about it, but we needed it as a nation. Yeah. And if he would have ruled by consensus or as a servant leader, they wouldn't have gone. Look at the impact that the Panama Canal had on the world economy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be something you could identify with, but there's more than just that. But having that transformational leadership, I can show you in business. Have you heard of the Steve Jobs type?
Yep.
He was a transformational leader, disruptive type. Now, have you heard of Elizabeth Holmes?
Oh, yes, I've heard many of her in crypto.
A servant leader. What happened to her company?
Oh, just exactly. A $3 billion fraud.
Exactly. What about Yahoo? What about the CEO of Yahoo in 2012, 2016? I'll tell the story in the book, but it's pretty interesting. She might have wanted to have some dominant masculine men on her staff rather than the emotional fiasco that drove them into the arms of Verizon to keep Yahoo out of bankruptcy.
Right.
So I think you'll find that interesting in the book, being a financial space guy. But I use that as an example, not so much of gender, but of servant leadership versus transformational.
Right. That's really interesting. Now, let's just say someone starts off a little more doughy, right? In terms of like, they don't know what. I mean, how does someone pick what they're trying to like? Because imitation in the beginning, right?
Yep.
Like, is it just off of what inspires them? Because it's what would you recommend?
I give them a list. I actually go through what it means to archetype means, and how there are common archetypes of personality. And you've all heard of the big 5 traits, things like that. Everybody has heroes that they look up to and mentor. They have mentors in their lives. And if they don't, I talk about acquiring them through coaching and things like that. Right. So they have a physical person that they can model behavior after. It's more about modeling behavior. You could do it based on a movie character if you needed to. You really identified with somebody. There's been a lot of sports heroes that have done things like that. It could be a sports hero, and you could model your behaviors off of something like that. So if you're even starting at square one, it's not hard. Everybody has a hero, and you start there, and everybody can get a mentor, a real life mentor. In fact, that's how I recommend it, is that you do hire a coach or a mentor to accomplish several things in your life, and you get very narrow with those accomplishments. Don't make it a paid friend. You don't want to get a counselor that lasts forever and it's a paid friend. You want to go with something in mind. I would like to accomplish this in my life. Can you mentor me in this? Say it's financial, whatever it is, right? Say it's working out.
Yep.
And then you can acquire some of those skills. He's an expert at it, and you can mold your own behaviors off of that in order to achieve that same success. So that's kind of the outside in principle, is you're going to the outside and you're bringing it into you and you're modeling behaviors. That's how I describe it. And I use several stories. So even starting at ground zero, I give you a list. I give you a list of things you can do. Body language is real easy. You know, we talked about shaking hands in a masculine way.
Yeah.
That's at the very end of the book. That's just a little bonus in the added section, but there is a masculine way to do it and actually take space without somebody being obviously, a domineering, controlling individual that's irritating. You know, we've all seen that sort of individual. In fact, we all know, we've all heard of resting bitch face, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's resting douchebag face too. You know, the guy with the upturned mouth and just looking down his nose at everybody else and really kind of sour. That's really not a dominant masculine presence at all.
No.
And those sort of guys end up grandstanding to take on status that they haven't earned.
Right.
Hey, what color's my Bugatti? You know, what color's your Bugatti?
Red.
Yeah, which one, right? You know? Now, I'm not saying the Tates, I'm not calling it out, but people will grandstand and show off to show their status. Some of it can be genuine, but it's far better to have somebody discover your status or discover the skills about you than to have to disclose it. And we all do to some degree.
I mean, we all do a level of it, but like I've definitely met some people where it's a little bit much, where like it's almost like they're lacking something. Like they're trying so hard to impress you that it's like kind of sad a little bit.
Yeah, we've all met a shuttle pilot that fought in Vietnam, and drove the Orient Express Railway. But you know what I mean? There's guys that will do that constantly to try to get that status, and sometimes they start to buy their own Kool-Aid, and so that is not. But they think that's what dominance is. Right. It's really not,
And do they do it just because they've gotten like some benefit off of it in terms of like it's worked for me, haha, so I'll keep doing it?
Yes. And I go into that too, because while being domineering is not what dominant masculine presence is about, domineering and grandstanding, it does have a tendency to work for a period of time. And it works for a period of time enough that it's attractive to use. But those people are constantly moving people in and out of their friend circle. Notice, we know people just like that.
Oh, yeah, we definitely do.
So I talk a little bit about that too. And you'll notice those sort of folks have them moving in and out. And what do they always come back to? Look at me, look at my accomplishments, my receipts.
Right.
And it's kind of that grandstanding all over again. And it's unfortunate because some of those people are on the cusp of actually achieving that presence, and they may never see it. Yeah. And hopefully with something like this, they can get past that.
And some of them are just afraid of success as well. And
That's true too. Now I don't go into that too much, but that is absolutely true. Maybe they can use some of the emotional regulation techniques so they're not trapped in the past. A lot of them are depressed and they're worried about decisions that were made in their past, and that brings on depression, or they're afraid of the future. They're fearful. I have an acronym I use when I get into the tools for fear, because one of the emotions we work on regulating is fear. We work on 3 of them: anger, fear, and sadness. So fear, I tell them, think of it as an acronym. Fear, it stands for face, emotions, and regulate. So you're not reacting to that fear all the time. Fear will cause you anxiety. Yeah. And anxiety lives in the future. Well, guess what? It hasn't happened yet. Future hasn't happened yet. We're just in the moment. So if you can kind of start to get your mind around that, that's really important. And then in that same chapter, I delve into a technique that you can use to kind of calm that inner voice. We've all been up at night listening to those thoughts going over and over again in our head. I give you some really good tools on how to silence that voice and actually get into the flow state. Definitely. Yeah.
So obviously, thank you so much for coming, Red Pill Thor, man.
Thanks for having me on, man.
So you can find it on Amazon. Basically, search up Red Pill Thor, and it should show up. And
it's not Red Pill Thor; it's RP.
RP Thor.
Yeah, we'll just say Real Perspicacious from now on. How about that?
So RP Thor on Amazon, and then we'll have the audio version up hopefully at some point as well.
I'm hoping so. I could drop it any minute. We just gotta wait for the approval.
That is so cool, man.
Should be pretty cool. And of course, you can find me at becomedurable.com. There's a lot more on there. Thanks, man.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. And I'm going to be on the Latin Junkies in a little bit. Shout out to the Puerto Rico boys. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you guys on Saturday at 2 p.m. I will be doing an interview with Adam Sosnick. I think Charlie's going to be in the building as well, man. So catch you later.
You didn't have to cut me